My name's Melissa Avara, and I love being a realtor. I specialize in real estate in the DFW and surrounding areas, and I also grew up here, so I'm very familiar with the Metroplex. Buying or selling a home can be an extremely stressful task, so I really try to go the extra mile to take that stress out of my clients' hands.
This is Going the Extra Mile. Now, from Frito Nation Productions in the Caddo Office Reimagined Studios, here's Melissa.
Hey everybody, great to be in the studio today. I'm here with Eric Tomlinson from Supreme Lending, and we're going to have a little bit of fun today. So we're just going to kind of rapid fire some questions to each other about just industry and different things to try to further help you. So this could go really well, or this could be the craziest podcast yet. So here we go.
Let's do it. I actually forgot, to give you the rules of the game. If you get a question wrong, you take a shot. But I don't have anything to drink, so I guess we can't do that. So I was unprepared. Yeah, you can drink that. I was trying to make it fun. I was watching the guys that eat the spicy chicken. If you get something wrong, see who will cry first.
I can do spicy.
I can't. All right, so you want me to go first with the questions?
Sure, go for it.
All right. Is FHA only for low FICO buyers? If not, why do some sellers only accept conventional offers?
Well, to me, conventional and cash the last couple of years have been what most sellers want, just because it's obviously cash is easier, right? There's just way less hoops to jump through. You don't have to have the appraisal. A bunch of moving parts go out of it. You can close quicker. FHA, the reason a lot of those don't get accepted is just because of sometimes lender, repair, same kind of thing. I look at FHA and VA loans as very similar. Like in the last couple of years, if we have 20 offers on a house and there's 10 conventional and 3 FHA and 3 VA, those almost don't even get looked at because people are going to take what they know is a more sure deal versus having to go through and have all these lender required repairs and then the deal fall apart last minute. I mean, I've had a ton of that happen in the last year, and most of my sellers now are pretty hip to the game and know
okay,
I almost only list it as conventional.
That's the right answer. So let me tell you from a lender standpoint, okay? So the answer is FHA is not only for low FICO buyers. If a seller has multiple offers, I can see it not being as competitive, but the way around that is to get your lender, me, to call the seller and let him explain to them why we're going FHA. It's a big reason that they should know we're not going FHA because he's low FICO. It's because the rate is better and I'm giving him down payment assistance.
Right.
But I have seen scenarios where they're worried. Like I had a friend buy a house and he had a conventional loan and he was selling it, and the buyer that came in had FHA and he accepted it. Well, the FHA came back with a low value because the appraisal is different on an FHA loan.
Yep.
And so they said it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom when it was clearly 3-bedroom and 2-bathroom. It just, one of the rooms didn't have a closet. And because of that, FHA said 2 and the conventional said 3. So she had to switch it. So for little things like that, it can be a one-off, but that's where the lender comes in to talk to the seller, and that's how you leverage a competitive FHA buyer.
Okay.
That's so my next question is, or do we go back and forth, or should I just go all 5?
You can just shoot.
All right, I'll go again. All right, here. So you're 1 for 1. I'll give that to you because I'm. All right. So, what, if anything, are sellers, realtors doing to move houses in this market? Because I've been seeing, I saw a stat today that days on market, the average is 84 days. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it's saying days on market, maybe 50 days, and it takes another 30 to close. So it's staying on there for 84 days. I feel like that's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, well, again, what we're coming off of was crazy. I would advertise a house is coming soon, and people are already trying to submit offers before it's even, they haven't even seen it. Well, those days, that's not necessarily gone. We're in summer, this is the competitive time, but compared to the last couple of years, things have slowed a little. I don't think anything crazy. I mean, to me, a normal balanced market, it takes 4 to 6 months, right, to sell. But, people can't wrap their head around that because the last 3 years, it's been 2 days on market, you have 50 offers, right? What I do to move my listings, I really haven't had any that have sat for that long.
Okay.
Like selling things like raw land, okay? Stuff like that is going to take a little bit longer than a single family residence. But I always tell my clients, I find out what the market value of it is and then try to price it just slightly under that, right? And that has worked out for me every time, where it creates more like, oh, wow, that's a deal, right? And now I'll get 30 people to come look at it. And there's power in numbers. I mean, the more people you have, it's like online dating, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
That's a shot at me, but yes, that's right.
the more action, or opportunities you get,
I'm all for the action. Yep.
right? I mean, you're probably going to get more offers, and then that's going to end up driving up that price point. And like, for instance, I have a listing that I'm going to have going live here towards the end of the month, and it's land. It's an amazing piece of land. But, I've told my client, I'm like, this is kind of a niche, right? So it's like I try to, market that to developers, investors, depends on what it's zoned for, like all the stuff. But I spend a lot of money in marketing. I mean, to answer your question, for the last couple of years, so many people have gotten into this industry and they haven't had to have any skill set to sell a house because they're selling themselves. And now people actually have to work
Right.
and have a marketing plan and a game plan. And I mean, mine encompasses a lot. I'm very strategic with, running ads to very specific individuals that are looking for properties like that, and, going kind of above and beyond with different, like maybe broker open houses and, things like that. So there's so many different avenues to go. But to me, if the house is in a good area or the property and it's priced right, it should still sell. It shouldn't be sitting for, 300 days or 100 days or whatever.
Okay, fine. You get that one right as well. My next question. So I'll see all of these stats pop up, and I don't always understand some of them. One of them, I understand, it says the median house price has gone down about 4%. So the average sale price is around maybe $399,900. You feel that's accurate? Is that
overall?
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate.
Here's another stat: months of inventory, 2.1. I don't even know what does that mean?
So that means right now, if 2.1, you were saying months.
Yeah.
So we went from having like zero inventory, right, to now all of a sudden we're kind of getting back to where we have a little bit of a surplus, which is what we needed.
What do you think? What do you attribute that to? What is
new builds?
Okay.
I think that's a lot of it because a year and a half ago, builders couldn't keep up. I mean, I would take clients and they're like, hey, we have these 3 phases. We have 500 lots to sell, but I'm sorry, we can't sell you anything because we don't have the help. All of our stuff is back ordered, so they wouldn't even let people sign contracts. Well, that's because of COVID. And now we're out of that and not having the supply and demand issues to the extreme that we were. So now it's funny. It's like within a year span, I went from clients being on a wait list for a new build that was probably going to take them 2 years to get to now builders begging me, bring your clients. And hey, we'll give them 10 grand.
Right. So the pendulum is kind of switching a little bit to the buyer has a little bit of advantage now with more inventory.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Which is the shift we need to happen.
That's especially for me.
Yeah.
All right. Now, have you dealt with condos before on purchase? Okay. So there's 2 types of insurances that the underwriter is going to look for, and one's an HO3, another one's an HO6. Do you know the difference between the two?
I don't.
So HO6 is what you're going to need for a condo, because when you buy a condo, you only own the space in between the walls because you have shared walls, you have a shared roof, there's common areas everywhere. That's why the HOAs are so much higher. But that's also the reason why the condo prices are a little bit lower than a single family home, because there's less space and you have shared walls. The thing is, you have to keep in mind what the HOA payment is, because normally HOAs are higher on condos. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, but the insurance that you need is an HO6, and that's considered walls in. So when you're going to look for quotes, you You don't need to send the homeowner's insurance company the address of the building because they may just give you an entire insurance policy on the entire building. Yeah, and you don't need that. It's an HO6. So
okay,
that's a little buzz term. So you got that wrong.
Gee, thanks
and
for the confidence boost.
listen, it can't all be easy. The last question, and this is for lending purposes. Are you familiar with the new program? It's called a buy down, seller buy down, and a lender buy down. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
And if so, what do you explain that?
I mean, well, I've had enough lenders reach out to me about this. It's to buy down the rate, right? I mean, that's what it is. And I feel like that's what everybody's having to offer these days just to stay competitive. Because, again, a year ago, rates were what, like 3.75, and now they're, what's today's rate?
On a conventional deal, you're going to be in the mid sixes, usually paying a point today. But it swings so hard every day. I mean, it can go either way.
I mean, so it's pretty much doubled in the last year. And so that's obviously taken people out of the market who are already at their max. So it's like this is a way to keep business flowing for everybody because, I mean, let's face it, people are always going to need a place to live. Regardless of what the economy, if it's in the tank, if it's thriving, people are always going to need to buy and sell or relocate or whatever. And as builders and as lenders and people in this industry, you have to do something to offer people to still move.
Yeah. So you got that right. So I'll add on to that. The buy down, it gives you the opportunity to buy down the rate, but just on the front end. So normally if you were a buyer and you paid a point, people think, oh, that's the worst thing in the world. But what that point does is it buys down the rate. But if a buyer does it, it only moves the rate maybe 0.25%. So you're 0.25% below market. But if a seller contributes money, for every 1% they give you, I can drop the rate 1%. So some of these deals, I closed a deal the other day, and the seller gave 3% seller concessions because the appraisal came in high. So we raised the sell price and told the seller to give us that money. The seller did not care because he was still netting the amount of money he would on the original sell price. Okay? So because of that, I closed the first year that buyer is going to pay a 3% interest rate. The second year will be 4%, the third year will be 5%, and then the sixth year, it'll be at the contract rate as it was today. It'll be that 6% for the rest of the term. But the reason why lenders are doing that now is because this buyer, we know they're probably going to refinance once the market rates go down. The reason why the market rates are high is because inflation is high.
Right.
And so we're trying to control inflation. And it is, the inflation rate has gone down, but it's not where we need it to be. So the rates are going to be high for a while. And it may be a year, it may be 2. But I can give a 3-year cushion where you'll never pay today's rate.
That's awesome. And then by then they can refinance.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah. And we do the refinance and it doesn't charge the buyer anything. But that's what the buy down is. That's the most popular product right now. It wasn't around the past 5 years because it wasn't warranted. We were in a low rate environment, and today it's a weird time. But that's the program. If I was buying, that's what I would use and leverage.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. To me, that just like describes where we are right now, especially in this industry. It is a weird time.
Well, yeah,
and I think it's going to stay weird and get a little bit weirder.
Yeah.
For probably the next year. I mean, clearly we're in a recession.
Yeah.
And, everybody thinks it's like doomsday, like a repeat of 2008 and 9. But a question for you. Uh-huh. So, Rocket Mortgage.
Okay.
Well, just came out with this, like 1%, right, on like FHA, like 1% down. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that's like, okay, now so we have people who can't afford houses.
Yeah.
That are going to get approved.
Yeah.
Now, are lenders going to try to compete with that?
I don't know I don't know all the details on Rocket Mortgage programs, so I don't know if I can answer that one fully. But there are. I know, yeah, wrong answer. But I mean, every lender's going to have special programs. I would just make sure you read between the lines because there could be something in there that doesn't really add up or it might not be a benefit.
I'm just thinking since they're such a big player in the industry and they have come out with this, like, do you think other mortgage companies
yeah.
follow?
I mean, I've yet to, like, for us at Supreme Lending, if I can't match a deal, I just ask for like a loan estimate, and 9 times out of 10 we just match it if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll talk to a buyer and they'll say, yeah, I got this rate from company XYZ and it was from 2 weeks ago. Well, the rates have gone up 2 weeks. And if you were stretched to get in that house at that rate, you're going to have a problem. And if you're not staying in touch with your lender almost daily until you get under contract, things could go sideways.
Okay.
So communication is big. I'm in DFW, so it's all of our processing and underwriting is in-house. So the communication is it's easy for me to go talk to someone face to face. I don't have to wait for a reply to my email. I see these people daily. But yeah, there's gonna be a lot of programs coming out there. I don't, the down payment thing. The way I combat that, I just use the down payment assistance where I cover the entire down payment. So it's not even 1%; it's 0. So that's always my rebuttal with that.
Okay.
If they say, well, give me 1% down. Half the time I use the down payment program just for the low rate. So I got that answer right. All right.
Okay, so that leads me to another question that you kind of touched on. So I have a lot of people, whether they're first-time buyers or people don't do what we do. They don't know, right, the ins and outs, and so they're like, oh, well, what is underwriting? What happens during that process, and what's the benefit of it being done in-house versus outsourced?
Yeah. So the first thing, underwriting, they're the last line of defense. So they protect our company for an audit. So if we send them a file that says this person has good credit, income, and assets, the underwriters verify that our processing team, they contacted the employer and made sure they're still working and the income is calculated accurately and the assets are qualified. You can't go rob a bank, put the money in the bank, and then use that for cash.
Darn.
Can't do that. So they verify credit, income, and assets, essentially. They're the last line of defense. That's what underwriting is. The in-house underwriting is a benefit because you're delegated to approve your own loans. Sometimes when you have to go outsource, not only is there a gap in communication because you don't get to talk to these people face to face. Sometimes emails don't come across, they don't ask the right questions, and it just takes too long. The back and forth. You have to wait to reply. In-house, so I can get an answer directly, and if there's any confusion, you can just ask me and I can give it to you immediately. It's not always like that. And a lot of times your offer is competitive because you move quickly. And when you have gaps in communication, things don't always move quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for maybe a first-time buyer or somebody who hasn't bought a house in 20, 30 years, I get asked all the time, and I know the answer, and I know you know the answer, but explain a little bit about when you're trying to qualify for a mortgage, like what debt-to-income ratio ideally needs to look like for you to be able to qualify?
So that's a good question. So there's a desktop underwriter, and it's not always black and white. But if you have a mortgage payment, there's two types of debt ratios. There's a front and there's a back. So the front end debt ratio is just the mortgage payment divided by your gross monthly income. That ratio right there, you want to keep that around, like a depository bank would tell you 28%. With us, it can go up to 40, really. Ideally, you want to be in that 30 to 35. The system will pretty much approve you 99% of the time. So that's the front end debt ratio.
Okay.
The back end is when you take that mortgage payment and you add in the monthly debt from the credit report. So if you have $500 car payment, not the balance, just the car payment, you add that to the mortgage payment. Credit card minimum payment due, add that to the credit card, or add that to the car and the house payment. All that together should not exceed 50% on a conventional loan. On FHA, it can go to 55%. So that just factors in, the mortgage payment, how that is to your income, and also all your other debts. That's the front end, back end ratio. And then again, it's not always black and white because the system may take other things into consideration when it's approving your loan. There's like this drawn out algorithm. But if you have an 800 FICO, they may be more flexible on your debt ratio. But nothing on conventional goes over 50 and nothing over 55 on FHA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what about, and I know this has been a big topic for a lot of people the last few years with rates rising, locking the rate. I know it's like you can lock it for so long, right, without there being a huge, charge. But talk about that. Like, how far can you lock a rate, an interest rate, and what is the average charge for that?
So you can lock a rate that I've seen up to 180 days. We have programs where we do. It's called a C30 look, a conventional 30-year program, and you just have it floating. And basically, it allows you to lock it, and then within those it's a 60-day lock. Within those 60 days, you're able to float the rate down if the rates drop. But if anything, worst case, you're locked in at today's rate, and you just keep that. If the rates go up, you don't have to worry about it because you're locked in from the day that you locked it. But if the rates go down, you can just float it down.
Okay.
But the average, like the lower the term of the lock, like the lower the amount of days, the cheaper it is for the rate. And the reason being is because, again, if the market tanks, you're going to have to pay a premium for that. So essentially a 60-day lock, if the rates go to 10% and you're on a 60-day lock, then you did well. And you can always pay to extend it too. So it's just all about like ensuring that the mortgage company isn't upside down on that loan.
I've seen it be more of an issue with like new builds, right? Because like delay, like, hey, this house is supposed to be done in December.
Right.
Well, now it's projected May. Mm-hmm. So now we have 6 more months.
That's a tough one. And also the values of homes too. Like in the past, you could sign up to buy a new build and we lock you in. Maybe it was a 60-day lock and we can extend it for another 60 days if we have to. But the crazy thing is the values of homes were going up so fast, they would move in the house and the house had already gone up $100K.
Right.
And that was a great thing. But in this market, it may flatline and it could be less. But I highly doubt that. I'm starting to get appraisals come in higher because the sellers they know that the rates are high, so they're not as aggressive. Mm-hmm. And that's how we're able to leverage that buy down program is we bump up the sell price just to get a lower rate. But that's a good question. The rate lock is sensitive, and a lot of times I just float it. And it works out.
So let's talk a little bit about just income and employment, like verification, that process. So I know when somebody fills out an application with you, right? Like you don't necessarily, somebody could call you and say, hey, my credit's 800, I make 200 grand a year, I have no debt. And you can kind of give them a verbal, right? Like, okay, this is probably what you're looking at. But until you have all the stuff in front of you, like you can pre-qual them, right? But I've had clients who absolutely freak out, and I'm like, guys, this is normal. Where like you do the verification and they think they're good, and then literally like the day before closing, right? There's phone calls like to make sure that person still works there, or that their income hasn't changed. And I had one scenario where literally the day before we were supposed to close, they called to verify, and the person had quit their job. I didn't know that they had quit their job. And then the lender calls me and was like, this deal's dead. And I thought, what? Mm-hmm. And then I call my client and I'm like, why did you quit your job? Wait until after you close.
I almost changed my signature line on my email. It says like, don't go buy a boat. Don't leave your job while they're in this process. Anything. Yeah, because if you do it, they'll see it. I mean, they don't repull credit, but they have like this report that comes out, and it can see if you have inquiries, and they'll address those and say, hey, what is this inquiry? And if you say, oh, I bought 10 grand of furniture and the payment's $1,000 a month, like you should have waited to buy that furniture.
100%.
Now, and then the job thing, they just like don't leave your job because they will verify. The part of the qualifying, there's a pre-qualification and there's a pre-approval. The pre-qual is just the verbal and pulling credit, you're pre-qualified. But the pre-approval is when they actually review the income and make sure that it qualifies, and then they'll look at it again before you close. But that's the difference. Every file, every conforming loan, they're gonna verify the last 2 years of employment history and the last 2 years of residential history. So if you have 10 jobs in the past 2 years, your pre-approval process may take longer because they're going to have to contact every employer and verify those dates so they can verify no gaps of employment because they want to make sure they can, they can put that together. Right. And if you're a student, then they'll consider school as part of your 2-year employment history. But gaps in employment are big right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we should wrap it up with, I want to hear your funniest or craziest scenario. Like, I've had so many of just, it can be like something that just went sideways or, whatever.
Oh, man, I don't know if they're that funny though. Well, they're like, maybe sad.
Scenario, like for me, okay, I'll go first.
All right.
I've had a few where it's like, I had an investor buy a property and it was a Friday night. And he's like, hey, could you just meet me at the house and give me the key? And I said, sure, no problem. So me and my husband and daughter, load up on a Friday night thinking this is going to be a 5-minute drop off, done with it. And so we go give the guy the key, and we just happened to be sitting out there still. We hadn't driven away. And this guy comes hauling butt out of that house over to my car and is asking me if I have a gun.
What?
And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, there's a woman in this house. And this house was like down to no flooring. No, it was a complete gut job. Right? Well, I guess this lady was squatting in there, but she was strung out on God knows what.
Wow.
And just acting a fool. And threatening this guy. And he was scared to death.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. So much this 5-minute ordeal turned into like a 2-hour thing where we had to call the McKinney police.
What?
All the neighbors are out at this point. It took police like 40 plus minutes to get this woman to come out of the house. Right? I mean,
did they have to carry her out of the house? Like, how'd they get her out?
I mean, she walked,
okay.
but they were beside her.
Wow.
I mean, it was just like, oh my God, the things I experienced, right? Just crazy. Besides, like, just the funny things. I have one guy who, God, early on when I first got into the industry, I bet I showed 25 properties to this guy, and half of them, like, people have animals. They're supposed to leave them caged or, somewhere where they not get out. And every time I would go into a house, like, a cat would just come out and dodge out of the door, and then I'm hauling butt down the street to try to catch the damn cat. I mean, and my client's like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And I'm like, no, it's not. That stuff like that happens to me all the time. Like, you just never know what you're going to walk into.
Yeah, you definitely see more than I do because you're physically meeting these people and going into the houses, which is why your job is more intense than mine. I mean, I don't see anything like that, but I have seen people do crazy stuff with credit and like think that it's okay. And, it sounds dumb that I would put that on my email, but like I secretly want to do that. Like, yeah, because it happens. I mean, they just don't. A lot of things just happen, and I get it from there. They're like, "Oh, I'm already qualified. I can just go do whatever." You can't. Just wait till you close. That maybe I should put that on my signature line. Just wait.
No, I mean, but
wait.
It seems like it's common sense,
Yeah.
but people literally. I think the thing is, they get so excited, and like they want new stuff, new furniture, new appliances.
Just wait.
And I'm like, guys, don't. They're like, well, we need a fridge for the day we move in. I'm like, well, go pay cash for it.
Yeah.
Don't put it on credit.
Right.
Don't.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, just wait. I had a guy, literally a client of mine. We were sat at the closing table. We had just signed everything. The people walk out, or the title people walk out, and he looks at me dead serious, and he goes, "So can I quit my job now?" Literally, he hadn't even been done signing 60 seconds, and I just died laughing.
Yeah.
And I go, "Well,
man,
yeah, if you want," and he did.
Yeah. That hasn't. Yeah. Do whatever you want after you close, I guess.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay, so we both got a lot of answers right.
Well, gee, thanks. Were you just wanting me to fall on my face?
I thought I would win, but no, that was good. That helped. I think that Did you have any other questions though? Like,
that's really it for me right now.
Yeah.
But this was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime.
That was good.
No, the story, I was like, and maybe we can record it, but, well, hold on, don't. So I was wanting to say the funniest story. You have to know. Come on, motherfucker. You have
that
to
story.
Know. Like, there's a way with no name.
Oh, my God. That's right. I forgot. That's right. Yeah.
Let me remind you.
All right. Do you want me to tell that story?
Are you comfortable telling her?
Yeah,
do you want me to tell it and it not be you?
She won't listen, so it's all good.
Well, just obviously don't say the name.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm encroaching in your personal space.
I don't want to get beat up by Clint. Yeah.
Beat up by Clint, please.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So my story, your crazy story will still be better, but I was on a dating app and I met a girl for dinner and we hit it off, and she knew I was a loan officer. So, she was interested in what she could buy. And I said, let's take an application and see how it looks. She looked just fine, and she, whatever, passed. And I said, I can help you. I can set you up with a realtor, and I can even go look at some of these houses with you, kind of give you an idea of what the scenario would look like. Good. We do it. We go look at a few houses. And then I say, well, now that you're serious and you have, your realtor like working, I need to get the documents to pre-approve you. You're pre-qualified, but now I need to pre-approve you. I get the documents and the pay stub says married. and I was like, this is like 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks after we met.
Well, wait, hold on. I got to interject here. Yeah. So first, I'm the realtor showing the properties.
Oh yeah.
And I meet up with this person and I was like, how was your weekend? It was great. This happened. And I was like, wait a minute. She has a ring on her finger. I know my buddy that he didn't put that ring on her finger. I know that for sure. And so I instantly get in a car and I was like, hey, do you have any news? Anything to tell me? He's like, no. And I let him know. And then he's like, what? And then it started spiraling into...
Yeah. You thought I asked her to marry you at first. You're like, did you...
Not a chance. I knew better.
Yeah. So she was engaged, I guess. I still didn't get the full story.
She had a husband.
Had a husband.
But it was engaged to somebody else.
Yes.
And then...
Yeah. And
you were just a bonus.
Hey, business is business. I mean, I still did the loan and the guy was a nice guy. It was just like, I don't know how we knew each other, but that was definitely a one time. That's never happened. But that was, yeah. But it turned into a closed deal. So everything has a purpose, and that's my purpose.
I mean, I like your approach. It's like first date, and then people find out like what you do for a living, and you're like, hey, I mean, I'll help you. I'm gonna have to see if this is gonna work out long term. I'm gonna see your stuff anyway,
yeah,
so
right.
you might as well give it to me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is funny. Yeah.
That one will go down in my history books as one of the most screwed up but yet funny scenarios.
So I just keep swiping right. That's how it works.
The end.
If you have questions about buying, selling, renting, or investing, don't go at it alone. Reach out to Melissa at 214-280-4317 or Melissa at melissamovesdfw.com. You can find out more about the Melissa Avara Realty Group at TVG by visiting melissamovesdfw.com. Thank you for listening to Going the Extra Mile.